Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's 5-Minute Lectures. This information will be U.S. Notes 2.1, Post-World War I Presidents. It includes information aligned with the first section of your study guide. Now, remember, you control the lecture. Pause, write down your questions, rewatch as often as you need, and always use your study guide to help you take notes. Let's go ahead and get started. For the U.S., World War I lasted from 1917 to 1918. Woodrow Wilson was president at this time, and when the war ended, it brought the U.S. back into the same policy of isolationism that existed prior to the war. So here's Wilson, and we looked at isolationism. Wilson served out the remainder of his second term, and then in 1920 he left office. He was followed by a decade of Republican presidents, leading the 1920s to become known as the Republican Decade. The first of these presidents was Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding was elected following Wilson and World War I and was the first of the 20s Republican presidents. His campaign slogans of "A Return to Normalcy" and "Keep America American" give a good idea of his beliefs and focus during the period. Harding wanted to continue isolationism, focus on the U.S. and prosperity, and limit immigration. His policies included a laissez-faire attitude towards business, isolationism, and immigration reforms that included the Immigration Quota Act of 1921. Remember, laissez-faire is hands-off, or a policy of not regulating business. Isolationism was keeping America out of the affairs of other countries, and the Immigration Quota Act limited immigrations from Eastern and Southern European countries, essentially continuing the policies we looked at in Unit 1. This immigration concern was prevalent throughout the time period, leading to the Red Scare of 1919. While this impacted Harding's presidency, we'll look at it a lot more in later notes. So, laissez-faire, isolationism, and limiting immigration were really the focuses. Harding's presidency was also associated with scandal, much like the Gilded Age presidents. His largest scandal came in the form of the Ohio Gang. It was a group of his friends from Ohio he had given jobs to through patronage. These men were corrupt, took bribes, and were not qualified for their jobs at all. One of the famous scandals they drew the president into was the Teapot Dome scandal. This had to do with oil companies and selling rights from conserved land for oil drilling. It hurt Harding's public image and had the public upset with him when he died in 1923 with 1 year left in his presidency. So, with Harding's death, his vice president, Calvin Coolidge, became president. He was known as Silent Cal, and Coolidge was very reserved and not seen as corrupt. He was frugal and simple. People liked this and re-elected him for a second term, allowing Coolidge to serve from 23 to 1928. His policies mirrored Harding's policies. He continued isolationism, laissez-faire, and immigration restriction. Coolidge even added stricter restrictions to European and Asian immigration with the National Origins Act of 1924. This act, however, did not limit Latin American immigration to the U.S. And under Coolidge's presidency in 1923 through 28, we actually saw an increase in Central and Southern American immigration into the U.S. So he continued those same policies. In 1928, Coolidge chose not to run for another term, leaving the White House to Herbert Hoover. Hoover, who had been the Secretary of Commerce under both Harding and Coolidge, continued the same policies of isolationism, immigration restriction, and laissez-faire. He ran on the slogan of 2 cars in every garage, which was a nod towards the idea of prosperity and continued prosperity in the 1920s. He believed that the policies of the Republican presidents in the 20s had led to economic success, and he did not want to change this. So he continued the same things and added prosperity. Hoover was so wrong to keep those same policies. He was going to be proven so wrong as time went on. So this is the end of U.S. Notes 2.1. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in class with any questions you have.